I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're tackling a thought-provoking and controversial topic with an amazing author. His name is Van Taylor, and he has penned a powerful book. It is called I Found Du Bois W.E.B. Thanks to the N-Word. In the book, the author explores the complex history and linguistic evolution of one of the most charged words in the English language, while also uncovering hidden truths about identity, race, and culture. If you're interested in history, language, and the impact of words in society, you won't want to miss this amazing book. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Van, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Yes, I'm pleased to be here.
Great to have you on the show, sir. Let's start out by telling the folks at home a little bit about who W.E.B. Du Bois was.
Okay, W.E.B. Du Bois was basically he was a black scholar in
Mhm.
the 1800s, all right? And he was a graduate of Harvard University in the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
He went to the University of Berlin and to attain his professorship. And he also attended a black college because he was not able to go directly to Harvard because of certain laws that were passed in the 1800s preventing black students from attending white universities.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was an amazing brother, you know. So
Yeah. Absolutely
yeah,
amazing, man. I mean, he overcame insurmountable odds in many cases to become such a well-educated person in an era where Black people were openly discriminated against, even in the letter of the law.
hmm yep.
So, what do you mean by your title? I found Du Bois W.E.B. thanks to the N-word. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was like looking at the history of the word and I was like, you know what? If we start saying the N word at a certain point in time, it's going to be totally lost. Like, what does the word really mean?
Mhm.
Because you ask a lot of people, nobody really knows. Some people will say, I watched interviews from back in the 60s, and people were like, I don't know, but I'm a good one and stuff like that, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
then as I started doing research, it started becoming more and more clear that it was the Latin word niger that solely means black.
Right.
And it was used at a certain time in history. It wasn't used as a racial slur. That that started occurring when it came to the shores of America. And then
Yeah.
also the extra G, I would assume it's the way that Southerners speak and they spell words as they pronounce them. So the extra G got added on to it. So yeah, yeah. So as I did my research, that that's what I really discovered. It's really a word that just solely means black, and a lot of people, colored people, have a hard time adjusting to that because it was used in such a what is it a degrading way
Yeah.
that they're like, no, it just can't mean black. I'm like, yeah, it just means somebody saying I don't like blacks.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, I think that it's a pejorative, it's an insult, it's a racial slur. I mean, I think most people would agree to that. It gets confusing though when it comes to sometimes rap culture. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Okay.
say
All right.
Nigga, you
Hey. Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and what if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not an ER, it makes a difference. What's
It,
your take on that? Is there a difference? I mean, should rappers and people in the music industry be throwing around a word that has its roots in a much more offensive word or basically the same word but a different pronunciation?
yeah. Yeah. You know what? It's the same word. Like I
Hmm.
can't even just go up to a person of color and say and call them with the A, nigga,
Right,
if I'm saying it in a negative way. So
right.
it doesn't matter if it has the GER or if it's the A. It's just the way that I present it, you know?
Yeah.
So if I present it to a person in a negative way, they're going to respond to me in a negative way. But I guess when you add the A onto it, it's just, some people quote say it's a way of taking control of the word and making it ours compared to it being the way that it was in the past. But you know, to me, basically, it's the same. It's the same
Yeah,
for it's black, 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 black. To me, that's all it is. You know?
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do you find the word inherently offensive if they, depending on how it's pronounced, the context? I mean, if it's Jay-Z talking about Nigga, is that
Yeah.
different than, somebody down south who, is in overalls and beat red in the face, saying it with
All right,
NER?
all right, like, all right. You know what? Say, because I did mention this in my book, right? I said, Icon, DMX, when he was saying his song, "Where My Niggas At," all that.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful song.
yeah,
Everybody in the crowd goes wild. Everybody loves that, right?
right.
But he's not saying it like, get that person
No,
like that, get that in right there, you know. So when it's being said like that in a positive way, in an uplifting way, yeah, it's motivating. Believe me, it's motivating, right?
so a lot
But
of it has to do with context, basically.
context, yeah,
Yeah,
that's like if
yeah,
you call a woman a B, but you
right.
call her like in a negatory way. People know how you're denoting it, you
Right,
know?
right,
Yeah,
right. It's the
yeah,
media that makes
absolutely.
us think that we can't figure out these things on our own
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
inject controversy where it doesn't exist. What do you hope readers take away from your book? What do you hope they understand after reading it?
Oh, the main thing that I hope that they understand is that if you like, all right, to me, it's like putting a nail in a person's coffin, right? So to say the N word, right? I'm saying the phrase N word.
Hmm.
After, let's say, 80 years, somebody's going to say, what does the N word mean? Because
Right.
there's going to be different generations. They're going to say, I don't know, I don't know. And so what I'm saying is then that whole generation of people, because what I'm trying to bring to light right now to say to black people, hey man, don't you know we used to speak Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic?
Hmm.
And then a lot of them was like, nah, you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. There was black in the Roman Empire, right? There was Aramaic was spoken all up in northeast, northwest Africa, right? Ancient Hebrew and Greek. Greek and Latin is hand in hand. So I'm just saying, as we came towards time, as we started coming towards our modern time, some of these languages fell off, you know, because Hebrew, ancient Hebrew became, you know, this modern Hebrew, right?
Right.
uh, um, Latin went through its stages, classical Latin, this and that. No, ancient Latin, classical Latin. What's his name? Isaac Newton
Right.
was his time stamped in phrase as Latin, right? And then finally it fell off. The British Empire was still using Latin, right? And scientific papers were being exchanged throughout the nations, different countries in Latin, right? So as time went on, the word just niger for black just fell off, and it's like people was like, I have no clue what it means because you're
Mhm.
no longer using Latin, and it was picked up in the 1600s as a negative phrase now, just
Yeah.
saying black nigger and negress, right?
Right.
And the people totally forgot. So I'm saying, hey, when a lot of black people say because of slavery, we no longer know what our language was and what this was and what that was. And I'm saying it wasn't just African dialogue. It was
Right.
Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic.
Yeah. Very,
That's what I
very,
would like people to,
very
that's what I would like people
interesting.
to get out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to ask you this. Like, we're having a conversation about
Yeah.
linguistics right now.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
even in this context, I would never say the N word. Do you
Yeah.
think that's
Okay. Yeah.
wrong? Do you think that, like, people in having a conversation about this should be able to say that word, or is it so forbidden? It's like saying the F word, you just don't say it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's something that, it all depends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't expect people just to be walking around and calling, people like that, because,
Right. No, but I'm saying, like, in a conversation like this, I wouldn't even use it. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
all,
yeah,
and we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about the etymology of the word. We're
yeah, yeah,
having
yeah,
a
yeah.
conversation where nobody's being insulted. It's amazing
Yeah,
how charged that word is.
yeah, because I know some people that even what I'm saying now, black people, they still disagree with me.
Right.
They don't think that that's really what the word means, and I'm telling them, yes, it is, and I explain it to them. Yeah, man, we used to speak Latin, and
Right.
I'm not even mentioning, I could give you plenty of examples, but
Right.
but hey, I have some friends that are very close to me, right, and they're Caucasian, right,
Right.
but they grew up in a different environment. they may have grew up in a group home amongst all black people. And if I'm sitting talking to him and he's saying it, it doesn't faze me at all because
Right.
I know he's not racist in any way, and that's my people. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
But in general, just want for everybody to say, "Oh, I'm good, not going to say," you know. But what I'm trying to say is this, Logan, is this:
Yep.
we could stick with that N word phrase, the
Right.
N word, but I want people to be conscious of that. It means black in Latin.
Right. Right.
That's what I'm.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Spanish today, people say negro
yeah,
means
negro.
black. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
But you know what?
Yep.
That's interesting that you say that, right? Because see, Negro, right,
Right.
really is like for Spanish saying, okay, the black people, they call them Negroes, right?
Right.
So they use the word Negro for meaning black, right?
Right.
But the word Negro really means denied. It means you have no rights.
Hmm.
It's the word I got it in my book. It's the word de negro, right?
Hmm.
But it's not with an R. It's Nego, right?
Hmm.
So it's not with the R. The R got thrown in because English people, write they write it like the way they pronounce.
Right.
But if you look in the thing, Latin, it means de negro means you have no rights in the court of law.
Yeah.
So that's how black people were treated for so long that the Spaniards looked at that and said, well, we'll use that word to describe the color black. That's why Elijah Muhammad used to say there is no such thing as the so-called Negro because that's it doesn't exist. That's not a race of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating
Interesting.
stuff. What do you hope the folks at home and the readers of your book learn about William Du Bois?
Well, I would suggest that they would get the autobiography because it's just so much about the man that I really can't, sit here and really explain it to them.
Mhm.
But I would say, check out his autobiography, and or just study him some. But he was definitely, yeah, a very intelligent man that wanted everybody to be able to express themselves at their intellectual levels and get compensated for the work that they're doing, not because of skin color or anything like
Yeah.
that or special privileges, but on your merits. And he was saying that in the 1800s, right?
Mhm.
And he did it, he did a case study on what is the problem of with black people after slavery. And his conclusive psychological study, right? Because he was psychologist,
Mhm.
sociologist. He was a sociologist, right? As well as speaking many languages, Latin, Greek, German, who knows what else, right?
Right.
But but what I would say is that I lost my chain of thought right there.
Oh,
Help me
no
out here.
worries, no worries.
Uh,
But
uh,
they
um,
need to know that he was a very
yeah.
much a
Oh.
trendsetter. As said.
Okay. This is what I say. That yeah. So after his whole studies, he determined that the problem that black men and women were having in America wasn't of their own. It was really because of systematic racism.
Yeah.
And he was praised for his observation and his course of study, like how he went about coming to his conclusion. But even though he was praised and all, we didn't have nothing changed. The
Right.
government didn't turn around and put into legislation, certain laws to protect people against slander,
Yeah.
propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Fascinating
a lot.
stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. The book is, I must say, sometimes when I reread it, I say, bro, you wrote an amazing book, man. How did this all come out your mind? And
Yeah.
it just clicked, you
Yep.
know.
You did do an amazing job with this book. Tell us a little bit about your background. Do you work in the music industry?
No, no, but I produce music. I've been producing for a while. I've been playing drums all my life. I'm a
Mhm.
drummer, and then I moved into music production. And this one particular song that I talk about in my book, right? It has like a Civil War theme to it. And that song really started pushing me to say, come on, you got all this in your mind. You know you're gonna write about this. Start writing. And then a lot of amazing things happen, right? Like I realized, like during the Civil War time, right? You got to remember Benjamin Franklin was like 85 years before the Civil War, right?
Mm.
Benjamin Franklin was the one that discovered the light, electricity, and all that there,
Yep.
right? So then that's when I started thinking, hey, I play electronic drums. I don't use acoustic, right? And then I started thinking that, the Civil War, people knew about electricity and stuff like that. So I said, I'm sure that somebody must have been thinking whether it was a soldier because he can't hear the drum commands, or the drummer to say you could hear these commands better if they were electrified, right?
Mm.
But the funny thing about it, see how all this started to connect was after the Civil War, it was only 13 years later that Alexander Graham Bell came up with the microphone.
Mm.
So
Amazing.
imagine that if you would have had mic drums out there on the
Exactly.
battlefield,
Exactly.
I'm
Yep.
like, man,
Amazing. Yeah,
so
everybody
amazing.
stands on everybody's shoulders. One man's
Right.
accomplishment leads to another person's accomplishment. And
Absolutely.
congratulations on the book. It is wonderful. It is called I Found Du Bois, W-E-B, Thanks to the N-Word. It explores the
Yes.
complex history and linguistic evolution of one of the most charged words in the English language, while also uncovering hidden truths about identity, race, and culture. If you're interested in history, language, and the impact of words in society, this is a book you won't want to miss. Van, thanks so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Yes. Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's been
Thank
all
you very
mine,
much
sir.
for having me here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.